In March 2026, the outbreak of war in the Middle East severed the flow of 11 million barrels of oil per day and 140 billion cubic meters of natural gas, shutting off a massive fraction of global energy logistics overnight. The executive director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, quantified the damage. The loss to global markets represents the 1973 and 1979 twin oil crises, plus the 2022 European gas crash, combined into a single simultaneous shock. This dual-axis chart tracks two concurrent realities. The x-axis measures rising successful U.S. and Israeli kinetic strikes against Iranian targets over 30 days. The y-axis tracks the simultaneous rapid collapse of Japan's Nikkei and South Korea's Kospi indices. Look at the divergence point. Right as kinetic military dominance reaches its operational peak, economic stability decouples and drops off a cliff. The air campaign is succeeding on the ground, while systematically suffocating the economies of allied nations.
This data outlines an escalation trap. The escalation trap is a conflict loop where neither side has an incentive to back down, because the cost of conceding increases every day. Iran neutralizes conventional military superiority by weaponizing global energy logistics. Freezing commercial shipping creates a form of macroeconomic mutually assured destruction. To understand the failure of conventional deterrence, we have to look at the physical destruction of Iran's military infrastructure. The combined U.S. and Israeli air campaign methodically targeted Iranian state missile production. Airstrikes leveled the production and planetary mixer sites at the Khojiir Aerospace Complex. This facility finalized the FAF 360 and the Haj Qasem. The FAF 360 is a short-range ballistic missile, while the Haj Qasem is a medium-range ballistic missile capable of striking targets up to 1,400 kilometers away. The combined force also degraded tactical projection capabilities by striking Artesh tactical air bases, cratering runways, and destroying surface facilities. In the air, the defensive grid performed effectively. The Israel Defense Forces reported a 92% interception rate against incoming Iranian ballistic missiles during the opening weeks of the war. In response to this air disadvantage, Iran relies on area denial. Area denial is a military strategy used to prevent an adversary from occupying or traversing a specific geographic zone, rather than trying to defeat them in direct combat. Obliterating an adversary's launch capacity and intercepting their missiles achieves tactical victory, but it is strategically insufficient if the surviving remnants of that military can still deny global access to a critical economic choke point. Facing highly advanced interception grids, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps immediately pivoted their tactics to bypass the technological shield. This scatter visualization demonstrates their new approach: cluster munitions. These warheads open mid-air, dispersing dozens of submunitions over a wide area. Dispersing at high altitudes overwhelms localized ground-based interceptors. Cluster munitions now account for 70% of Iranian launches. The IRGC also shifted its approach to manpower. Following Israeli operations that degraded proxy leadership in 2024, the IRGC deployed officers to Lebanon to systematically retrain and restructure Hezbollah. This network topology graph shows mosaic defense, replacing centralized command with a flat system of autonomous units. Instead of top-down hierarchy, the network relies on horizontal, isolated nodes. If a cell is taken offline, the wider system continues operating independently. Technological air superiority can easily dismantle centralized infrastructure. It cannot easily dismantle a decentralized, flat proxy network explicitly designed to absorb high levels of attrition. The geopolitical standoff centralized around one geopolitical flashpoint. U.S. President Donald Trump issued an ultimatum directly to Tehran regarding the Strait of Hormuz. The deadline was absolute. Iran had 48 hours to fully open the strait to commercial shipping. If they failed to comply, the United States military would obliterate Iranian power plants. Iran immediately issued a counterthreat. If the United States attacked, Iran would deploy sea mines across the entire Persian Gulf and launch strikes against critical desalination and energy infrastructure in neighboring allied states. Regional allies are highly exposed to this threat. Critical loading facilities, like the Karg Island Terminal, and unprotected coastal storage tanks present massive static targets for coastal missile batteries. Weaponizing a choke point does not require parity in warships. A nation doesn't need a superior navy to close a strait, only access to the water. The mere presence of unattributable floating mines instantly freezes commercial maritime insurance markets.
If underwriters refuse to insure the hulls or cargo, the risk calculus breaks down. The threat alone halts global shipping without firing a shot. Controlling the risk equations of maritime insurance underwriters acts as a more effective blockade weapon than a fleet of destroyers. With the Persian Gulf paralyzed, state-level panic rippled through governments dependent on those maritime routes. This bar chart shows global strategic reserves draining. The International Energy Agency authorized withdrawing 400 million barrels to combat the price spike. Projecting this depletion forward, relying on reserves is mathematically unsustainable. Within months, the emergency buffer reaches zero. This physical shortage triggered the destruction of capital across highly exposed Asian markets. South Korea's Kospi dropped 6.5%, and Japan's Nikkei fell by 3.4%, wiping out massive amounts of equity in days. Emergency civil interventions became necessary to weather the shock. Indonesia began considering fuel-saving measures, including remote work for the public sector, to preserve its fuel subsidy budget. New Zealand temporarily relaxed fuel quality standards to allow domestic supply from alternative sources. The ultimate macroeconomic threat paralyzing global central banks is stagflation. Stagflation is an economic condition where slow growth and high unemployment occur simultaneously with rising inflation. A sustained energy shock provides the exact catalyst for this cycle. Tactical military maneuvers in the Middle East now directly dictate the sovereign monetary policies of the Asia-Pacific. A localized conflict determines the price of capital globally. This is the mechanics of the escalatory doom loop. Neither the United States nor Iran possesses a viable off-ramp without absorbing unacceptable strategic losses. De-escalating means conceding leverage. Escalating means destroying the global economy. The structural reality of the conflict remains fixed. Absolute conventional military dominance belongs to the US and Israel, but the geographic choke point belongs to Iran. You cannot analyze military targeting data in isolation from the market crash. A 92